10th of July 2018. And Mr. Speaker, page 21 of this report, the issues for consideration, Mr. Speaker, during the approval hearings was on 3 issues: the procedure used to arrive at the nominees, the constitutional and statutory requirements relating to the nominees, and finally, Mr. Speaker, the suitability of the nominees for appointment proposed with due regard as to whether the nominees' abilities, experience, and qualities meet the needs of the body to which the nominees is made. So, Mr. Speaker, the committee is guided by those 3 very important considerations, which are set out very clearly in Section 7 of the Act. And, Mr. Speaker, in the interest of time, I will not really be able to go through every observation on of the Act sets out the procedure. There is a selection panel which sits down, invite applications from members of the public. They interview these members and recommend names to the President, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we wish to confirm to this House that the committee noted that the nomination had been made in the manner prescribed in Section 7 of the Act and the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the other consideration, and very important also, is regional representation and ethnic diversity. I don't need to quote Section 250, Article 250, Sub-Article 4 of the Constitution, because it's very clear also. Article 10, Sub-Article 2. But, Mr. Speaker, I wish to just say that the Act provides in Section 13 that in shortlisting nominated persons and members of the Commission, the selection panel, the National Assembly, and the President shall ensure that not more than 2/3 of the members are of the same gender, shall observe the principle of gender equality, regional and ethnic balance, and shall have due regard to the principles of equal opportunities for the persons with disability. Mr. Speaker, out of the 3 nominees, 1 member is a person with disabilities, Mr. Speaker, is a deaf person. And, Mr. Speaker, I want therefore to confirm that this qualification or this requirement is fulfilled, and the committee considered the list of the nominees proposed for appointment as members of the Commission. And, Mr. Speaker, noted that the nominees were drawn from 3 different regions and belonged to different ethnic groups, Mr. Speaker. Again, on that basis, Mr. Speaker, we were able to realize that that requirement is fulfilled. The 2/3 gender principle, Mr. Speaker, out of the 3 nominees, 2 were men, 2 were ladies, 1 was male. Again, Mr. Speaker, that requirement is fulfilled. Persons with disabilities, as I said, one of them, Mr. Speaker, is a member with disabilities, Mr. Speaker. And finally, the issue of the youth. Mr. Speaker, if we were to apply the principle of ensuring that all the categories, also say that the previous chairman of this commission is a member sitting in this House now, Honorable Honorable Molo, who is now serving. Madam Speaker, and the person now proposed for chair was a former member of this House. I think, Madam Speaker, there will be a lot of exchange of experience between the sitting member here and the member proposed for chair now. And I believe, Madam Speaker, that this committee is satisfied that, Madam Speaker, these are members that can indeed be able to move forward this commission to serve the Kenyan people and ensure that we have access to justice as they are served by the public officers in our country. So, Madam Speaker, I want to move and request Mr. Honorable Peter Kaluma who is also a member of this committee, Madam Speaker, and a learned colleague, of course, my learned junior, to also second this motion, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much.
Very well. The chairperson, Honorable Kaluma, to second.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to second this important motion. Indeed, I'm the junior of the chair of the committee, both in Parliament and in the legal profession. And that is how we address one another. It is not demeaning for lawyers. Madam Speaker, I want to thank the President for once for upholding inclusivity and ensuring there is the face of Kenya in the constitution of this commission, even in as much as there was constraint in terms of number. Madam Speaker, for once, we have a commission in which more ladies or members of the female gender are proposed to serve than men. It is 2 against 1. For once, Madam Speaker, we have a committee which, even though is limited by just 3 in terms of number, we have a person with disability, sitting there. And a person the committee confirms showed and confirmed during vetting that indeed there is no person with disability, but we have people who are able in different ways. A very sharp Kenyan, a very patriotic Kenyan who would serve. Madam Speaker, the requirements of regional balance, the requirements of gender, the requirements of integration to the extent possible, therefore have been met in these nominations. Madam Speaker, the report also confirms that the integrity of all these nominees are not under challenge, either before a court of law or before anybody charged to investigate and ensure that ethical standards in persons holding public offices are upheld. Indeed, Madam Speaker, I know 2 of these nominees at a personal level, and I think also at an official level. I do not know nominee Opio, but Madam Speaker, I know Honorable Florence Kajuju, the nominee for the chair of the commission. This is a lady who served the Law Society of Kenya with distinction, and even before our election to this parliament was honored by the society, that great society of lawyers in the country, not only to serve in the council of the Law Society, but also to serve as a vice chair or vice president of that great society. Madam Speaker, upon that service, we served with Honorable Florence Kajuju, and I had the benefit, honorable colleagues, to serve with Honorable Kajuju in the great Committee of Justice and Legal Affairs in the 11th Parliament. I can tell the nation today that if the work of this parliament will be remembered, it would be remembered that it is during that time in the 11th Parliament, Madam Speaker, when the Companies Act, the Insolvency Acts, which had never been legislated by this parliament since establishment, were enacted by this parliament. Very voluminous laws, both in terms of content and just sheer volume of papers. I remember the energy and the effort and focus the Honorable Kajuju put together with members of the committee, including the current chair, in seeing into fruition, that area. There were a lot of developments in the legal profession in the area of family law. For the first time, we had one single law dealing with all family issues. We had, Madam Speaker, a move from the 1882 English, matrimonial property law, which was the law governing issues matrimonial property between married, couples. Madam Speaker, it is during the time Honorable Kajuju served this parliament, and together with us in Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, that we waded into that area of family law and secured that in accordance with the constitutional requirement that we properly anchor family as the fundamental unit of society, those areas around that law were enacted. And Madam Speaker, may I confirm to the colleagues now present and the nation that the efforts, the focus, the contribution of Honorable Kajuju in the enactment of those laws, are crucial. So that, Madam Speaker, I have no hesitation at all, confirming to the nation that I do not only second, but I support the nomination. And if possible, I would be joining members and urging the members to approve the appointment of Honorable Kajuju to serve. When she was here, Madam Speaker, we have a facility of bringing petitions. And a few members bring petitions, even in respect of matters affecting regions where they come from, as indeed other regions across the nation. Madam Speaker, it has not been forgotten by this parliament that there is a time we nearly, named Honorable Kajuju.
Honorable Millie Odhiambo, we have not even proposed the report, but what is out of order?
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Madam Speaker, even though...
Speaker, there is the second lady nominee, Madam Lucy Ndungu. Let me only say that if you can administer or be in charge of a body administering political parties in the country, Madam Speaker, if you know how we behave in our political parties, and you do so not in a confirmed capacity, but in an acting capacity, but do so with the resoluteness with which Madam Ndungu did her work, then we are talking of a person who has been petitioned, a person who can listen to anybody, a person who can withstand pressure in a commission of this magnitude. I therefore also recommend her. Madam Speaker, I'd appreciated that Mr. Opio had mentioned Mr. Opio is not known to me, but based on the papers he did present, and of course the confirmations by all committee members, Madam Speaker, this is a person of incapable knowledge, experience on matters human rights, and a person to whom, as I said before, confirms to us that indeed there is nobody who is disabled, but we have people in Kenya in our formation who are able in different ways. Madam Speaker, in ending, let me thank His Excellency, the President, for confirming that indeed what we term the Building Bridges Initiative, His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga is a reality. Madam Speaker, long before, more so in the 11th Parliament, you remember we were complaining about, ethnicized appointments. There is a time I contributed in a matter of nominations being approved before this House, and it was very predictable, Madam Speaker, the regions from which nominees were to come. Madam Speaker, let me confirm to the nation my appreciation that since the Building Bridges Initiative and the Handshake, from areas like Homa Bay, where we have never known a person called a mere board member of a parastatal, today we have members of boards of parastatals. And so my former colleague, Honorable Jojo Neri, is serving, Honorable Neto Yugi is serving, other former honorable members, Madam Speaker, you've seen them in nominations here. And so let me thank the President for holding true to the Building Bridges Initiative and for holding true to the constitutional provision requirement on inclusivity and the face of Kenya and integration, national cohesion in our country. May I thank His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta for being that symbol of national unity and not just leaving that spirit in word, but Madam Speaker, in securing that in his appointments, that is manifested. May I also thank the President, Madam Speaker, for securing that the wealth of knowledge that persons who have had the benefit to serve this country from the floor of this House would otherwise be wasting outside there are put into national service in the manner we see now the appointments of Honorable Kajuju, among other former members of Parliament. Madam Speaker, with those many remarks, I support and I beg to second. I thank you.
Thank you. I know now Honorable Millie Odhiambo is happy that you've spoken about the other members. I hope she was not protecting our territories too. And anyway, honorable members, I proposed a question, which is that taking into consideration the findings of the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs in their report on the vetting of the nominees for approval as chairman and members of the Commission on Administrative Justice, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, July 25th, 2018, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 252B of the Constitution and Section 11(7) of the Commission on Administrative Justice Act. This House approves the appointment of the following persons to the Commission on Administrative Justice. 1, the Honorable Florence Kajuju as the chairperson. 2, Mr. Washington Opio Sati as a member. And 3, Mrs. Lucy Kamunye Ndungu as a member. Honorable Cecily Barile.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this important motion. And let me start by really thanking His Excellency the President for bringing to this House for consideration 3 very able persons led by the proposed chair, the Honorable Florence Kajuju, who is known to many of us, Madam Speaker, served in this House in the last Parliament, not just as an ordinary member, but was chair of the Regional Integration Committee, a role she played very well, with a lot of humility and ability. And more importantly, she also served in the Legal Affairs Committee, Madam Speaker. And I want to say that there's no doubt, having listened to the chair and those of us who know the Honorable Kajuju, that she's really well able to serve as the chair of this commission. It's also very nice that we now have a woman who will be serving this commission, Madam Speaker, that goes to support and to hear the voices of Kenyans who have not been heard in other offices, Madam Speaker. I also want to say that she is very, very committed to matters human rights, very committed on matters women and the rights of women. And so I have no doubt that she'll serve very well as a chair of this very important commission, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we do also have Mr. Opio Washington, who comes from Kisumu, and he's also deaf, Madam Speaker. And I think that's a very, very good move by the President, because he's telling us that indeed he continues to be very committed to matters and to persons with disability. And he continues to prove to this country that disability is not inability. And he's putting persons with disability into big offices to prove that they can also serve and do it very well. We have seen the work of PS, who has done very well despite her disability and continues to serve this nation very well. And we continue to see many others, even honorable members of this House who have been nominated to serve in this House, Madam Speaker. So I really want to say I'm extremely impressed by his credentials, Madam Speaker. She, having done a diploma in community development at the University of Nairobi, and then thereafter graduated with a degree in the same university, a bachelor's degree in political science and strategy in 2014, and later a master's degree, in 2011, and in 2014, a master's degree in human rights and governance, and is currently pursuing a doctor of philosophy at the Maseno University. Madam Speaker, how more inspiring can it be to see a person who is deaf, who's gone this far, and who the President has recognized? I really want to appreciate that and support Mr. Opio. Then, of course, we do have the third person, who is Madam Lucy Ndung'u, known to all politicians in this country, a lady who is as tough as steel, Madam Speaker, served with all manner of politicians. Many times we went and took to her very difficult situations that she handled very well, Madam Speaker. And so I want to say that I truly support Madam Lucy Ndung'u. I think she deserves to be a commissioner. She deserves to serve in another capacity. And I have no doubt that if she could manage that office of politicians, she can do very well in this particular commission. But Madam Speaker, allow me to just say 2 things. I don't know whether honorable members understand how important our benchmarking trips are. I am lucky and privileged to have been in the Legal Affairs Committee that was then chaired by the former.
I think based on the reports that we have received from the committee, have shown immense experience and qualification, and I am sure, based on the Article 75, sub-article 1 of the Constitution, they had no potential conflict of interest. They have complied with the independent institutions, that is the DCI, the KRA, the EACC, all of them, based on the attachment appendix into that report, they have not raised any matter adversely. And I am sure, to my knowledge, unlike Mr. Chumo, they have no active criminal case pending before a competent court. Madam Speaker, I have known Florence Kajuju as a member of Parliament for Meru County, and Florence Kajuju, Madam Speaker, has a history within even her profession. I think she was among the first women in the Law Society of Kenya, among the first women leaders. She was the vice chair of the Law Society of Kenya many years back when I was in the university, or maybe in high school. She was a member of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee of the 11th Parliament. She was the chair of the Regional Integration Committee of Parliament. And as the leader of majority then, in the 11th Parliament, I can comfortably and confirm that she was one of the best chairs that we had in the 11th Parliament. And she served well in the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee under the able leadership of Honorable Samuel Chepkonga. That was one of the best committees among the many committees we had. But again, Florence, being the chair of regional integration, she did very, very well. As one of my colleagues, Honorable Mbarire, said, I think all of us from the 10th Parliament, those who are in Parliament today, in one way or the other, we have interacted with Lucy Ndungu. Lucy Ndungu has been the pillar or the person, the navigator of the political parties as they exist in Kenya. But she grew in that system. She was part and parcel of the people who navigated the new Political Parties Act that we have in this country today, the Political Parties Tribunal. And Lucy Ndungu, her name, sounds big. Her position was big. But Lucy was a very, very humble person. Some of us, like me, interacted with her when a number of times my party took me to court. And that's why I tell Honorable Oyotsi, don't worry, when your party takes you to court, there were people before you. In 2007 to 2011, I had over 10 cases taken by my party to expel me from ODM. And of course, apart from the speaker, the other person who was being served was Lucy Ndungu. But she made sure that she followed the law despite the pressure from political parties. And even in 2011, 2012, before URP and TNA merged, and when we had our current president as our candidate, I am sure Honorable Karek Mbuki is sitting here and Honorable Mbarire, we had for about 3 days, we lost our candidate to some, we lost our candidate to somebody else, and we had no candidate. But Honorable Karek, Honorable Silim Mbarire, Honorable Shebesh, Honorable Kabogo, we didn't sleep. And we had to bring back our candidate back to the campaign trail. And Lucy was with us all the time. People used to deposit memorandums and coalitions. But with all the problems of the political class, if you go and meet Lucy Ndungu, you'll find her a very humble, good person. And I'm sure we want to thank the president for appointing our brother, Washington. If you look at the National Land Commission as constituted today as a commission, we have a gentleman called Tororei who is blind. This commission again is joining that line, that we have a Kenyan, because of his disability, he has been given an opportunity as a commissioner. But what is the function and the work of the Ombudsman? The function of the Ombudsman is to be to be a watchdog on behalf of the citizens. In fact, they play similar roles with IPOA. They play similar roles like the Kenya National Human Rights Commission. So we expect Honorable Kajuju to be very firm and lead from the front in making sure that the rights of Kenyans, regardless of their political affiliation, regardless of where they come from, and the community that they do come from, are given justice and are given fair under the new constitution. So, Madam Speaker, I think Honorable Kajuju is up to the task, and her two other members. And this is the only commission under the Constitution that has 3 members. The Constitution talks about minimum 3, maximum 9, but this one has 3 members. So I really want to ask my colleagues, those who are in the 11th Parliament, the likes of sitting here, Honorable Wanyonyi, Honorable Makali Mulu, Honorable Mishimbogo, our Secretary General for Ford Kenya, Honorable Eseli, you know Kajuju. You can speak for Kajuju. And please, let's give her a job. And let's give Lucy. You know Lucy. I'm sure the SG knows Lucy than even most of us. He has interacted with Lucy more than anybody else. And because they have complied with all the statutory requirements, let us give them an opportunity, and I'm sure where they are, they will help us bring this institution that Honorable Otiende Omolo has raised it to a higher benchmark, to a further scale. So with those many remarks, I support.
Yes, support. Indeed, you can confirm that Honorable Kajuju was always sitting behind the leader of majority seat. And Honorable, while you were away, Honorable Emilio Odhiambo was asking members to declare interest. So that doesn't apply to you. The Honorable...
Madam Speaker, many people have missed justice in this country, and they had no recourse to anywhere else. Even arbitration, they are not aware of. But the Ombudsman Office has been a very important office, as the Honorable Otiende Omolo elevated it to that sphere, that now many people are aware of it. I know at the moment there's a move. People are trying to merge the Ombudsman's Office, the Gender Commission, and the Human Rights Commission. Some people are trying to make a move to merge them with this impetus of reducing the number of commissions. But I think we should let the Ombudsman's Office stand for a while so that people can actually benefit from it. And on the spirit of devolution, they should actually also try and devolve their functions. Madam Speaker, why I'm also convinced that I'll not move the amendment to drop Lucy Ndung'u is also because I think for political parties, it's also good riddance that she leaves and goes elsewhere. Madam Speaker, I believe she has been the cause of the muddied political space in this country. She was, at one time, the Registrar of Societies when the multi-party wave came, and she was actually in charge of breaking up Ford Kenya, breaking up the original Ford, breaking up Ford Kenya. She was also in charge of the mix-up in ODM Kenya, and all that. She has actually been the architect of the muddied political space. That's why I'm saying the only reason I will support is so that she can leave. So that she can leave as registrar of political parties, so that we can clean up that space. Madam Speaker, why I'm saying this, I'm not just being unfair to her. Sometime in the 10th Parliament, I had a privilege to travel to South Africa under sponsorship of NDI. And that time, the current Speaker of this House was the chairman of CMD. He was also on that trip. We were actually going to look at how the political... she just did her own things to purport to be actually doing what we studied in South Africa. So she totally failed, and that has actually caused some of the problems we have at elections, that we get this animosity between parties that can't be solved, which are supposed to be solved by the political parties liaison committee. She was in charge of implementing that. She failed. Now she's going to go through the administrative justice. She's been unable to give administrative justice within the political party's office. Because, like the sharing of political parties' funds, she decided that the share will depend on the presidential election of October 26th, leaving out the August election. Yet we know very well you cannot base political parties' funding distribution on a by-election. Because what we had as a repeat presidential election was a by-election. If we have a by-election in Migori now, it will not determine how many votes ODM got to get a share of the political party's funding. So but I'll still accept to support her because in this commission, she will not be alone. She'll have two other commissioners. She'll have two other commissioners who will mitigate her ill intents. Because, Madam Speaker, I'm sorry I'm being very harsh on her, but it has to be said. It has to be said. It has to be said so when she gets there, she knows that we know and she stops those nefarious activities. Madam Speaker,
Just
sorry?
shout point of order, Honorable Member. Just put your intervention card. If you have it, you don't just shout from there. Just put your intervention
I'll continue
card.
because she's not coming up.
It's where? Because I can't see your intervention card, Honorable Member. Can you just do it again? Because I will rule you out of order when you just shout from the behind. You have a point. Yes, Kiva. Honorable Member, there is a point of order by. Just give her the mic.
Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. I want to thank the Honorable Member who is giving a very good contribution. But just like Honorable Kaluma had earlier been indicated to declare his interest, it's also important that the member also declares his interest because you cannot seem to be putting a positive agenda with negative energy. We have places where the person who has been put in this particular position has used her intellect and intelligence to run her affairs at the political parties as a state officer. So let us not drag mud, and we seem to be wanting to use it for ugali. I don't think it's going to work very well. If you want her to go to be in, what is out of order is declare his interest and not use negative energy to drive a positive agenda. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I don't know which standing order that is, Madam Speaker.
Anything that I remember
Madam Speaker, I can't find the
Just a moment. Honorable Eseli, just a moment. Yes, honorable members, because I even remember the Speaker said anything that is out of order is something that is a disorder to the. But anyway, let us not use that chances to make our contributions. So he was saying because being in the party, you declare interest. That's what I heard. It was whether you have interest. No, let him declare his interest if there is interest. That is what has been required. Honorable Million,
the interest here is to debate the report. That's the report. And I'm talking as an SG, a long-standing SG, and my experiences. And Madam Speaker, I didn't see anybody, she didn't even tell me the standing order that I had breached. However, as I second last, Madam Speaker, as we speak, there are people in political parties which they didn't register in. It's a fact.
If you ask a question, is Honorable Florence Kajuju going to be independent? The answer is no. And you know the reason. Is Mrs. Lucy Ndungu going to be independent? The answer is no. I am talking this way because I think as Parliament we need to be consistent in what we do. We have just passed a motion rejecting Ben Chumo for the reasons we have given. And now we are in the mood of passing another motion appointing people into a very serious commission. And we are not looking at the details. Madam Speaker, I have known the third nominee for some time now as the registrar of political parties. And if there is an office in this country that requires serious reforms, and serious administration, it is the office of the registrar of political parties. But what is happening there? We have cases of abuse of office. We have cases of unfair treatment. I don't know whether the committee tried to do more thorough work by even seeking for representation from the political parties tribunal. We have had so many judgments that have queried the capability, the fairness of the office of the registrar of political parties.
We must remember, this lady has never been a substantial registrar of political parties. She has been acting for all those many years. And we all know very well, when you are acting, you have some challenges. I can tell you, by the time she was working in the office of the Attorney General, as one of the senior officers there, Lucy Ndungu was among the best officers. That time I was consulting for the government. She was one of the officers working under me in terms of training. And I can tell you, she is one of the best students you can get when you are training an officer. So to me, I look at our performance in this particular place based on the working environment. We are all politicians. And we must accept that if there is any group of people who are disorganized this country, it's us when it comes to political issues. Look at the way we manage our political parties. How many of us have run away with the tickets? With certificates. We have taken off and we are here having taken off with our certificate. Not properly nominated. Now imagine if you are in charge of such a group on a serious note. They would expect the same treatment when they come to your office. So we must accept that Lucy Ndungu was working under a very difficult environment, more so political environment, and to make things worse, she has always been on her acting capacity. And to me, I've even sympathized with this lady, because if I were her, I would have left this place a long time ago. Despite all these challenges, she actually stuck to that position till she was given this other opportunity. So even those who are saying it might be a good riddance, and we want her now to leave so that things improve there, I think what we need is a person who is going to join to take our position. Mr. Speaker, I would plead that that person will require all the support, both from political parties and from the government. We need a substantive registrar of political parties. And let's start by looking at ourselves, those who are in charge of political parties, so that if we promote democracy at that level, so that we talk about democracy and we promote at that level, we'll make the work of the registrar of political parties very easy. But in a situation where we have all this confusion in political parties, automatically then that office will be confused. So for me, I really want to support this appointment and plead with the honorable members to allow these Kenyans who have been given this opportunity to serve us. And if there are any shortcomings, I think the law is also very clear in terms of how can you replace a commissioner. I'm sure the chair of Legal and Justice Committee here, Honorable Chum, will be more than willing to bring a motion in this house to say so and so is not performing, and I recommend that we remove that person. But when we start now discussing individuals in the light of not really performing and we don't consider the environment, Mr. Speaker, I think we will not be doing service with this Kenya. And Mr. Speaker, for your information, after the next election, some of us here have very good papers. And will be wanting to be appointed to some of these positions. After Kenyans will have said no to you. Because 70% will be going home. We have no choice. You like it or you don't, you might want to hear this statement, or you might not want to hear it. But 7% by 2023 starting will be away from this place. We'll be seeing new faces all over the place. And now we'll be asking ourselves, which commission do I apply? Which commission do I apply? And I would want us to support those of us who have been in this house and they're out there, because tomorrow it will be you in the same. And I think let's appoint people on the basis of competence. And let's look at really which is the appointing authority, because once they are there, they will serve. With those remarks, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for giving me a chance, and I say I support these appointments. Thank you very much.
You turned yourself to be a prophet as well.
The commission is going to letter to our people. We need to educate the public about the importance of this commission. We need to move further and ensure that we have funded them properly. They need to be delocalized. They need to move their offices to the local level and deal with issues at that level. This is the best team to me, and I thank the President for considering Florence to to be the chairperson of this commission. It is not the political affiliation. It is not. It's the competence of Florence Kajuju. We know her at the local level. We know her at the national level, and therefore I support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You know, Honorable Amaro, when you have a chance to speak and Honorable Wanyonyi has, I'm inclined to giving who? Yes, Honorable Kevin Wanyonyi. That is the circumstances under which Honorable Wanyonyi.
Chair, I think also let's go in for ranking. I'm a ranking member of this House. I've been sitting here for all this time.
You
But
now
all
have
the
the
same,
floor.
I want to take this opportunity to support this motion. And I want to say that, for example, the Florence Kachuchu, to me, is a very strong lady. Actually, I'll support her nomination because she's actually a very able lady, outgoing. She's a very committed lady, and we have worked with her. Therefore, this is the right job for her. I want to say, I think the work is well cut for her. And all I want that we want this commission to be independent. Mr. Speaker, out there are a lot of complaints. And this is the right time, this is the right place, and I think she's up to the task. However, with Ndungu, I think much as most members are saying, she has a very heavy work. I agree, but I think she messed up the political party's token that was given to her, although she was in an acting position. She messed up quite a bit. People have complained. I've complained myself. We sent even a list of voters, and you know, it was all messed up. So let's not pretend about it, but she's there. I think it's a good riddance. So I can get somebody better or somebody more committed to that position. I think I support. I think she's there. I'll support her. We hope that she'll be able to work diligently under Kachuchu, because I think knowing Kachuchu is a very strong woman, she will not be pushed around. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, I also want to say that while receiving this complaint, you know, IPOA and the cases like that, we want to deal with these cases systematically, be able to get the root cause of most of it, so that our people now, and those of us who have been receiving this complaint from our people that we represent, will be able to be dealt with. So apart from just receiving the reports, Mr. Speaker, I hope they'll be able to go beyond the reports that they'll be getting. And therefore, I suggest...
The members are keen to speak to this motion, but I'm afraid it is 7. And the House must rise. Nevertheless, because you haven't called the mover to reply, there is certainly an opportunity when this matter comes up again. The time being 7 p.m., this House started adjourned till Thursday, 26 July 2018 at 2:30 p.m.